All right. Hey there, Lillian Minix here with Timmons Group. I have Bekah Kendrick on the call today. We're going to talk about some grant writing service opportunities. But before we do that, if you are joining us, you know that Timmons Group actively um, celebrates our technical staff all over the firm by hosting live discussions. These published to our LinkedIn, our YouTube, and our Facebook. So if you're on any one of those platforms and you're seeing us right now, thanks for tuning in. I'm Lillian Minix. I'm a communications manager for the firm. I manage a team that does everything of all of our external stuff, and then that includes live discussions. And I'm excited to have Bekah Kendrick on the call today. Bekah is our firm-wide support resource grant writer. So Bekah just joined us in February of earlier this year, and we're excited to have you, Bekah, to talk about this topic. So,
Thanks,
well,
Lillian.
yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. Do you want to kind of debrief the people that are tuning in with us a little bit about yourself, your background, your expertise?
Sure. So, as Lillian mentioned, I started with Timmons Group in February of 2025, but have been working in the nonprofit and philanthropic sector for about 20 years. So, I've done everything from program development and communications to strategic partnerships and lots of grant writing and fundraising. I've also served as a grant maker and managed a portfolio of grants to nonprofits. And so have been able to see both sides of the funding equation. And that gives me some insights that I bring into this role, where I am supporting Timmons clients as well as our internal teams to help our clients secure funding for infrastructure projects. So I'm really excited to bring that experience and all the community connections to this role. And I also have a background in writing and teaching writing. And so I'm doing some internal support as well around technical writing. And that's sort of, yeah, that's what I'm bringing to the team.
Absolutely. So for those folks that are, in college and they're looking for their next venture, and you go to school for writing, creative writing, or one of the humanities, there are roles out there that involve long-term creative writing opportunities. Grant writing is such a really it's a cool career path. So we're happy that you landed at Timmons and you went through a lot to get here. So thank you for
Yeah,
bringing your expertise to the firm.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So you have been with the firm since February, like we said. Huge, wonderful, repertoire of experiences before that. And I'm curious. I know that Timmons Group has offered this service, technically speaking, to our clients. We even call it out actually on our website and a new web page that we created for you when you joined the firm to highlight, grant writing service. This is a service line that you're, long term offering to clients as kind of an add-on to what the technical expertise that our teams can offer. But Timmons Group has been offering this for 20 years, and it's been a little bit under the radar. Like we haven't actually promoted it necessarily. It's more of a word of mouth kind of service. But we're excited to have you in the door so that we can promote this and we can support our clients in their ventures to secure funding to make their projects possible. So
Mhm.
with that being said, the background that Timmons has had already, but now you're coming in here. I know you have a lot of you know things to share about your expertise. So, what are some of the challenges that you've seen historically that your clients have run into when deciding whether or not they're going to pursue a grant or how to acquire the content? There's so much to consider because grants are not small feats. They're very large endeavors.
Right. Yeah, I have, since I've been here, learned that the grant writing process is very similar in a lot of ways to the proposal process, which you're familiar with in the AEC industry, and so it's a lot of moving parts, a lot of collaboration on a tight turnaround, and so I do think Timmons has done a great job historically providing support as needed to clients on grants, and so I have a lot of guidance from people who've been doing that for a while. But I think one of the benefits of having a grant writer in house now is just centralizing all of those processes and having it be someone's job versus a part of what other people are trying to fit into their, to their work plans when they've got a lot of other sort of technical tasks to do. And so that's, one of the things I think I'm helping folks do is understand just what grants are available, because that's one of the challenges in the grant writing process is just it takes a lot of time to search through databases and or make sure you're receiving all of the announcements about funding opportunities from public sources, state and federal, et cetera. So being kind of a repository for all of that, I've been building out a grants database so that I can keep that information in one place and try to get it out to folks on a regular basis. So it's that challenge of just knowing what grants are available, and then it's really matching up whether that grant is a fit for the projects that you have. And so trying to take some of that off of people's plates to say, okay, here, let me read through all of this really closely and see if this is a fit for you. And then of course there's the just pulling together all the pieces of the grant application, and that just takes time. And making sure you have all the technical specifications and all of that. It can be a challenge sometimes when, especially if a project's really evolving or if it's hit some snags and it's maybe in a different state than you thought it was going to be. And so I think that's one of the things that's helpful about having a grant writer inside an engineering firm is that proximity to the technical experts. So I can just pop over to them and say, hey, what's the status of this project? What's the cost estimate for this? And can pull some of that technical documentation together more quickly, because that can be one of the challenges. But I think it's a really cool collaboration to have this kind of role within a firm, so that we can provide this just additional, more robust service to clients.
Yeah. And like we said, you're kind of situated in our infrastructure teams, but you're a firm-wide resource. And so we're really excited, to be able to celebrate our clients with this additional service, because it really is, to your point, there's so much that goes into the grant writing process, and have someone situated within the walls at Timmons Group that can really support our clients, anticipate their needs, because this is something that you've been doing for quite some time. So I appreciate you talking through some of the challenges, and not just talking through some of the challenges that some of our clients can expect, but also having answers prepared for those, because that's something that you've worked really diligently over the years. Just kind of like, I can imagine kind of collecting these case studies more or less in your mind of, oh, I did this grant for this client or this project, and I had lessons learned that I could take away and hopefully apply to a future opportunity for another client. So
Definitely.
Yeah.
And some of it is just demystifying grants, because I think grants feel really intimidating if someone's never done them. And so I think it's also nice to have someone on your team who's like, I'm not afraid to hit submit on this giant request, let's do this together.
Yeah, absolutely. And so are you, this is a question that I don't think I prepped you for, but I know you'll have an answer. Are you looking more at the state and local level, or the more federal level? You do a kind of grants from all over?
I'm trying to have this be really casting the net as wide as we can. And I do think that's also where I bring in some more expertise around other non-public, like private foundations and those sources of funding that we might not typically think of as funding public infrastructure projects, but the funding landscape's always changing. And so we have to, I think, keep our options really open and talk about how do we bundle together a couple different sources of funding, maybe adding a small component that doesn't cost that much to a project. Like say you're doing a transportation project, but you can add an environmental component to it that a private foundation is willing to fund, right? And then you're pairing that with a large state grant or something. And you can start to bundle projects, funding sources to get something done, and also to draw more attention to it, maybe creating more ways for the public to be excited about that project. So I think that's one of the things that I'm bringing to the table, as well as is a lot of my background has been in the philanthropic and private foundation funding sources. And so now pairing the public sources of funding with those private sources, I think just creates more opportunities.
Yeah. I will not lie, I had never considered the bundling aspect of the grant writing process. So this is why we call on our technical staff for conversations like this. And then with the bundling and like you said, even just tracking the grants, I know that you have a 90-day rolling tracker, a calendar that you offer to some folks. And if you're listening on the call or if you leave us a comment in the thread, Bekah would be happy to get you involved in that newsletter. We actually have another one going out next week. So we'll have a link to this discussion in there, but that 90-day rolling calendar serves is a really great opportunity for folks to track. And speaking of that newsletter, I know we also have in there an article that we're working on for you. That's the go, no go decision process. And that also will include a great amount of information that's really helpful and hopefully value to a lot of folks about making the decisions when they're looking at a schedule of those 90-day rolling opportunities, kind of deciding what they're interested in pursuing. So do you want to talk about that process at all? The kind of some of the highlight takeaways from that article. I don't want to spoil it because it'll publish sometime soon. But
Sure. Yeah, that's one of the most important steps, is discerning whether a grant opportunity is a fit or what are the various opportunities that, like we said, you could bundle together to complete your project. And so the process that I use and that I can help support clients with is just really deeply understanding the funding priorities, the funders' priorities, what that specific funding opportunity in this specific year, because it may change every year. Like, for example, a lot of funding for infrastructure in North Carolina and parts of Virginia has recently shifted its focus, rightfully so, to Helene recovery, right? So funding sources that might have been available for more generic infrastructure projects in past years are not this year. So it's just understanding and keeping on top of those shifts. And sometimes it just helps to talk through that with somebody and dig into the details and figure out whether what you need funded is a fit. And then understanding, what can and cannot be funded, and trying to make sure that you've got a couple different funding sources so that you can get all your expenses covered, or most of your expenses covered. And then looking at how competitive a grant is, that a lot of that information is available online. You can do some research on past awards to see whether that application is really worth your time, and also looking into, what is required, how much are they asking for. Some applications are very simple and straightforward. Others require a lot of writing and a lot of attachments and supporting documentation. And so then you just really have to discern whether you've got the capacity, whether you've got the right project, the right fit, et cetera, for this project at this time.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I know that, like you said, it's very similar in some ways to the proposal process. And that's something that, you're working really closely with our marketing staff on, kind of identifying those opportunities. So it's really great to be able to see the level of streamlined efforts and the level of collaboration that's there. And I'm particularly excited to see some of the existing, infrastructure that we have on the marketing side help support you, and then also you're doing the same and bringing in these new insights. So there's a lot of really cool collaboration happening behind the walls here.
Hats off to proposal writers.
Writers.
Hard job.
No joke. Well, I know we're kind of at almost 14 minutes here, but I did want to ask you a handful, not a handful of, last questions. I guess just one overarching question, which is, what kinds of trends are you seeing moving forward? We've talked about some challenges, scheduling opportunities, and the actual grant writing process. But looking forward, what are you seeing in emerging trends? Technology, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to predict, of course, what funding sources are going to do, what they're going to emerge, what's going to change. So you just have to really keep your eye on that. But one of the things I think is interesting, and I'm sure this is across every industry, is the question of how AI is going to impact our work. And as a grant writer, I mean, there are obviously tasks that, AI could really streamline and make more efficient. And I even, use, AI sources sometimes to help edit or compile a lot of information. I think that the key, as with anything, is making sure that the human who's behind the AI request is really still owning that process and owning the final product. And so seeing it as a tool in our toolbox to help make some of these processes a little more efficient, like plugging in a question about whether this is a fit as a funding source can save you a little bit of time. And just making sure that you're it's drawing on reliable sources. But I think that's probably where a lot of things are headed. I think grant writers are going to totally be replaced? I don't think so. I think like
No.
with any of this, there's always going to need to be a role for a person who is the glue that holds the whole thing together and is coordinating with the different people and understands what questions to ask and understands how to use the tool wisely and conscientiously. So I think it's an exciting technology that is probably going to create some efficiencies. And I think it's going to be best used if it's paired with, of course, that human who is running everything behind the scenes. Yeah.
Absolutely. This is, I'm very fond of this topic, as Bekah, and maybe as some folks that are tuning in know as well. This is a topic that I have been presenting on, via Timmons Group for several years now. And it is just so wild to see how quickly it's changed and the trajectory that we're headed now. And it makes absolute sense that you would be able to use machine learning tools like ChatGPT or Google Bard, or OpenAI in general, as a resource in the grant writing space, right? We see it in marketing. It makes absolute sense that you'd be able to use it there as well. I think that, to your point, the human, this is something that I have said in presentations before, is that we're employing the use of AI and of machine learning, but the human is still the brain and the relationship that you have with AI. And so I know that you take that very seriously. Our clients take that very seriously, and our staff do internally as well. But it still is a fantastic resource, to your point. So yeah, we love seeing, and I mean, we're on top of it, right? Like, we're staying on top of the trends and doing absolutely everything that we can to make sure that we're knowledgeable, because they're going to be used regardless.
Right.
And so we could be on top of it and ahead of it,
Right.
which is the goal. So that's fantastic. Well, Bekah, we're at 18 minutes or so here, so I'm going to kind of call it. But I love asking this question at the tail end of every discussion. Is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you want the chance to make known before we say goodbye today?
I had been thinking earlier about sort of what's so exciting about this work. And I think that for anyone out there who's sort of thinking about like how does Timmons Group approach grant writing? I mean, just like with any of our projects, it's very collaborative, and people here are so, they've got incredible expertise and dedication to excellence. And I love that. And I'm a very curious person. So I love that every grant project gets me to take a deep dive into something like stormwater or economic development or landscape architecture, such a variety of projects, and getting to work with our subject matter experts and learn and then try to pair that with what the client needs. It's just a really exciting process. So just to say that it's a wonderful place to be offering this kind of support.
Absolutely. Well, we're super excited to have you, and it's very obvious how much collaboration there already is. I feel like you're already very integrated into the firm and our bank of resources. So thank you for being here. And thanks for chatting for a few minutes today. I really appreciate it. Like I said, if you're interested in receiving Bekah's newsletter or being involved in some of the other grant writing resources that we have in our pipeline, please comment, share the video, share your thoughts, and we will loop you in with Bekah. And we appreciate everyone tuning in today. Thanks so much for joining me, Bekah.
Thank you, Lillian.
All right. Well, we'll see you later. I'm sure I will see you very soon in the office, and we'll keep the conversations going.